But anyway, just wanted to say welcome to everyone. Thanks so much for joining our first info session on the Lion News Revenue Fellowship. Super excited to see a lot of members and also some new faces join our session today. We'll keep it to about a quick 30 minutes. For those who are just joining and I haven't met before, I'm Cassie Balfour, Membership Programming Manager here at Lion Publishers. And I'm joined by my colleagues, Annika, who's the Deputy Director of Lion Publishers, and Penda, who is the News Revenue Coach. So super excited to kind of make sure we're spending as much time on questions as possible. In the meantime, I'm going to go through a very quick presentation and we'll drop some relevant links in the chat here in just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So for those who aren't yet part of Lion Publishers, aren't members, just I wanted to do a quick overview about who we are and what we do. So we focus on providing teaching, resources, and community to independent news entrepreneurs as they build and develop sustainable businesses. Our membership is, we have I think we're close to 300 members now across the United States and Canada. And our project partners include the Facebook Journalism Project, which is funding what we're talking about today, the Democracy Fund, Google News Initiative, and the Knight Foundation. And after I finish with this, I'll drop some links in the chat if you're interested in applying or learning more. I'll also include my email. Feel free to reach out to me for any kind of questions. And so what we're here to talk about today during our info session is Lion News Revenue Fellowship, which provides direct funding for Lion members to hire revenue generating roles. We're really excited about this project. It's a bit of an experiment. We haven't done a program like this before, but it's being led by my colleague Penda, who's our revenue coach. He has more than 25 years of experience in sales, marketing, and revenue generating experience. If you guys haven't already seen, we've been publishing in our newsletter and on Lion's Medium a new column called Dear Penda, where members can ask questions about revenue generation, and Penda answers that in a column. Drop some links in the chat if you're interested in checking that out or submitting a question. So again, we have kind of the FAQ online. We'll drop that link in the chat so you can go through that if you haven't already, but super quick is, kind of like in addition to providing hiring support and coaching for revenue fellows, selected news businesses as part of this fellowship will receive partial funding to pay for the selected fellows' salary over the course of 2 years, with the idea being that at the end of the fellowship, we want those kind of news revenue fellows to be self-sustaining or essentially paying their own salary out of the work they're doing. And in terms of eligibility requirements, again, that's kind of listed on online in the FAQ, and we'll talk a little bit more about particular questions folks submitted ahead of time, but we're particularly interested in supporting independent newsrooms who are serving communities that don't have a lot of alternative news or information sources, are in what's considered a news desert, and as well as those serving historically underrepresented or marginalized communities. And probably one of the most important things we want to kind of hammer home today is the application for the News Revenue Fellowship will close on June 18th. And in order to apply for the fellowship, we're asking folks to reapply for Lion membership or apply if you're not already a member or haven't been a member by June 4th. So again, if you have any questions about that, please feel free to reach out to me. And I think we'll head over to, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. So we really appreciate everybody who registered, submitted like dozens of really good, thoughtful questions. So we have organized those. Annika, do you want me to share my screen for this, or you got it? Cool. So we've organized those questions into this very fun retro board. And I think what we'll do is give everyone a minute to read over those questions. And then add, if you see any questions missing, or you've come up with like a new question in the meantime, then you can add those to the board. And if you scroll up, Annika, you see that plus sign there will allow you to very quickly add a question. So I'll go ahead. Do we have that link?
Yeah, you want to drop the link in, Cassie, to the chat?
Yep. Okay, so everybody, if you want to go ahead and open up that link I just dropped in the chat. And if you're having trouble adding a question for whatever reason, just drop it in the chat and we're happy to add that for you. So I'm going to put about a minute timer on this to just give people a chance to look at the questions and add any questions that they think are missing.
And you can also give a thumbs up to any of the existing questions if it speaks to something that you want to hear answered.
Cool. So it looks like we have some votes for our top questions. We'll try to get through as many as possible. And like I said earlier, we'll be updating our FAQ on Medium with kind of the biggest questions that come out of this session. And if for some reason we don't get to your question, we can also talk offline over email, and no worries about that. So
well, should I take it away?
Go ahead, Annika.
Okay. So will brand new local news startups pre-launch to just launch be considered? Penda, do you want to take that one?
So yes, good afternoon, everybody. Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I think, unless you have a revenue stream that you're currently, unless you have a stream that you're currently monetizing, it's going to be kind of hard to be considered. Because part of the criteria for strong consideration is that you have a revenue stream that we can help build out or build on, and so that's going to be a little tough to be considered if you're pre-launch for sure, and if you're just launched, the assumption is you have little to no revenue stream, and so that might be a little difficult.
Okay, so for nonprofit newsrooms, would sponsorships be in the same category as advertising revenue, or is that considered something different?
And so for nonprofit newsrooms, advertising revenue would be considered something a little different. And I'll use this example. Traditional advertising, as I'm sure all of you know, are traditional display, banner, tile ads on your website, ROS, run of site. Nonprofit newsrooms, revenue generation opportunities are typically donations that firms might engage with you for tax write-off purposes. And so they would typically be used to sponsor a specific content-driven topical newsletter and or new area of journalism that you're focusing on specifically that could be sponsored by that partner. So that would be the distinction.
Yeah, so if you are a nonprofit newsroom applying for this, the three revenue streams that we're going to be focusing on are reader revenue, major donors, and advertising. So if you're a nonprofit newsroom and you're interested in advertising, essentially, you could choose major donors because that's where we see the overlap and there.
Perfect.
Okay, so we don't have any funding at this time. I'm concerned about providing some of the salaries. Should this person still apply?
I would say yes, that person still should apply. We do, however, require that you have some skin in the game, that you're able to contribute some revenue, some monetary revenue to this person's salary. So you can still apply, but that is one of the requirements. So you should be mindful of that.
Yes, and then a lot of similar programs are aimed toward new or newer news organizations. Ours is 8.5 years old. Does the age of a news organization matter in this program?
Not at all. If you've got a defined revenue stream source, age does not matter.
Cool. So this publisher has grown their revenue to about $60K a year. Is it realistic to apply?
Yes, absolutely.
There's also a question by a publisher who is white. They say that they have a part-time freelance reporter who happens to be white. Is that a disqualification from having a realistic chance of getting a fellow, basically being a part of this program, given the stated DEI focus?
So no, that is not a disqualification. We do take into consideration the size of the media organization when we're considering all applications. I think DEI focus, also includes pay equity, gender parity, and so no, that does not disqualify you from applying.
This is a question from someone saying that they are not serving a news desert, but they offer things that other folks in town aren't offering. Is that going to impact their ability to be in the program?
Again, no. While we will give strong consideration to folks who do serve news deserts and communities that are underrepresented, that does not disqualify you, or that does not mean that you wouldn't get chosen for the program.
Yeah, and similar question just about around qualification. What size organizations are you looking to support?
And so the size of the organization, I think, does not matter as long as you meet the basic criteria and you have a revenue stream that you're currently monetizing now.
Yes, so there's definitely a trend in all of the answers that Penda's been giving around some of these questions around qualification. The one other thing I will add here is this is our very first time running this program, and part of looking through applications is going to be us understanding what the need is and kind of the current state of things for a lot of our Lion members. So that's really going to inform how, who we select for this program and how we shape this first cohort. So I know that, there are tons of opportunities out there for all of y'all to be applying to all the time. I totally acknowledge that filling out applications like this does take time. I would say if you meet the basic criteria, excuse me, and you have the time to do it, apply. There's absolutely no reason not to, so long as you feel like you have the bandwidth to do it. So what kinds of employee retention training will publishers receive? And this person sounded concerned that, at the end of the 2-year period, this fellowship could take what they've learned to another company. Is that just a risk that this publisher needs to assume?
Well, unfortunately, yes. However, we will be providing revenue fellowship training and support to the fellow that's chosen to work with that media organization. And so the hope and assumption is that the guidance, support, and assistance that the fellow receives will help keep them on staff with you. But that's just an assumed risk. Yes.
And we do offer other programming at Lion where we talk about operational resilience, what it takes to recruit and keep good employees. So you may be able to take advantage of other resources that we have to make sure that you're doing everything you can to keep good folks. Are you open to funding collaboratives of small news organizations? Would you be interested in a collaborative application? And I think the idea here from the person who asked this question is, getting together a group of news organizations in a particular region or area and having this news revenue fellow serve all of them.
Right. So I thought this was an interesting question when I saw it, and a good idea actually, but it requires a little further conversation because the news revenue fellow would need to be financially supported by one organization, and we'll need to make sure that that salary is covered, and then how the operation is managed on the back end to support that fellow would be important as well. But good idea, and I thought that was a very interesting question.
What factors go into the sustainability audit? Can you define what you're looking for in the sustainability audit? I'll take this question really quick because the sustainability audit is something we've been working on across Lion. The idea behind the sustainability audit, which we've only run one time so far in conjunction with the Startups Lab program that we were advertising earlier this year. The idea behind it is that we are collecting data about your news business that helps inform our understanding of where you are on the path to sustainability. And we're looking across three primary categories. So one is financial health, one is journalistic impact, and the last one is this idea of operational resilience. So for the operational resilience piece, we're looking at some fundamentals type stuff. So, does everyone on your team have a clear understanding of their roles? Are the salaries and workloads sustainable? Is there a plan and process to grow your team? Is the workplace culture fulfilling? Could the organization live on without its founder? Does your team reflect the audience that you aim to serve? For journalistic impact, is there impact that you're making in your community? Are you measuring it in some way? And then financial health, where is your revenue to expenses? Do you have sound business practices in place? And then, other specific financial measures that we're looking at. To be clear, we do not expect anybody to be sustainable based on this data. It's really a way for us to begin to understand how we measure sustainability, because we don't think that there's a great definition of that across the industry. Basically, when people say sustainability, they mean, they're the financial piece of it. And even that, is your revenue exceeding expenses mean that you're sustainable long-term? We don't know. And so that's what we're looking at with the sustainability audit. So, the finalists for this program will receive a sustainability audit. Our goal is for it to be as useful to you as a learning tool as it is for us to assess whether you are a good fit for the program. But there's no score involved. There's no final, like, you are sustainable, you are not kind of measurement that we're doing. It's just more info gathering that we're doing for the purposes of figuring out who's the best fit for this program. Okay, so this person wants to know, they have advertising and reader revenue right now. They're uncertain which one offers the most potential for growth. Which one should they focus on in their application?
So I would say in that instance, we would look through both revenue streams with you to determine which one would be the best one to focus on for this particular program.
Yeah, so totally fine to write about both in your application if you really can't decide, and we'll work with you to figure that out. Okay, so this one I was a little unclear if it was a statement or more of a question, but it says information about reasonably achievable revenue benchmarks for the different revenue streams would be very helpful. If you did ask this question, feel free to follow up in the chat to let us know what you're asking about there. We agree that it would be very helpful, and that would be part of the program that you would be getting that kind of information. Penda, did you want to add anything there?
No, I think you nailed it. A little more clarity.
Okay. Great. So we answered that one. Okay, could you be more specific about the kind of assistance that you would provide a winning news organization with recruiting a revenue generating staff member?
Yeah, sure. So we will help with assisting with reviewing the job posting. We'll help with sussing out or sort of streamlining the applicants, and we'll even assist with helping to identify best fits after you've narrowed it down as an organization. This person will also get assistance with learning go-to-market strategies, best tactics, from soup to nuts from a sales perspective and go-to-market strategies will be all of the things this person will be supported with, along with continued coaching and training.
Yeah, I think the best way to think about our support as it relates to recruiting this person and training this person is it's going to be a framework of some sort. It's going to be a framework that anyone in the program can use. So you are going to want to fill in those details of, who you reach out to recruit, or who you might partner with to promote the job. We're not going to be able to do that kind of detail level work because you know your market best, but we will give you the frameworks in which you can apply that to your process. Okay, so I'd like to work on a revenue model that would use alternative story forms like Google Web Stories. Is that something that would be fundable?
So I'm not sure about this one, Annika.
Yeah, I think, the basic thing that I think is being asked here is, balancing this tension of, is this program a good way to experiment with new revenue streams versus amplify some traction that you've already been able to show with your existing revenue. And again, because we are running this program for the first time, my hypothesis around this is that we want to start with really building a strong foundation for your revenue. And then I hope over the course of this 2-year program, you would be able, the revenue fellow that you bring in would be able to be more experimental with other types of revenue streams. But I do think our first priority is helping you really shore up the foundation for your revenue and then go from there.
Mhm.
Okay. This question is, do you have a training program? This person can find good salespeople but can't afford to hire them. I think we've already addressed this question. So yes, we do have a training program. Yes, we're going to provide some funding for this person. Yep, I think that question's already been answered. Okay, so do we have to hire someone before we apply, or can we apply for the fund and then look for someone to hire?
Right, so you can certainly apply and then look for someone to hire for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so we represent a news organization in a large market with a small staff. Does being in a competitive news environment hurt our application for this program?
I would say absolutely not.
Yeah. Good, easy answer. If you've worked with someone for sales on a contract basis, but would really benefit from a full-time or part-time person, are you still eligible?
Yes, absolutely.
And if the question there is about, could you take an existing person that you already have on staff and fund them to a higher level, so bring them on as a part-time or full-time person? To be totally honest, we need to think that through a little bit more. It's really important to us that we're part of the decision-making process with you all in terms of the fellow that gets brought on, because we want to make sure that they can benefit from the program and they're going to be the best person to work with us in this program to help with your revenue. So I think if you already, I think we put this in the FAQ as well, so you can read the more nuanced answer in that. But if you already have a person in mind that you would like to bring on board, just include that detail in your application, and we'll want to make sure, again, we'll want to work with you to make sure that they're the right fit for this program and that they can really benefit from it. Okay, so we are a nonprofit newsroom, but we're looking to sell traditional ads to city agencies, for instance. That would be banner or something alike. Would that still be considered major donors? Also, our sponsorships would be for events. Is that still considered major donors?
So I think that would be considered advertising.
Yep.
So yeah, that answers that. And then also for events, events would not be considered major donors, no.
Yeah. And to be clear, like this distinction isn't super important to us. We just want to make sure we're drawing some boundaries around what we can and can't support within this program. So one thing we definitely are not going to support with is general fundraising, which is often what nonprofits are focused on. But if you're a nonprofit who is interested in anything around advertising or major donors, that will be covered in this program. Okay, does the fellow need to be working on revenue full-time, or can they have other responsibilities within the organization during the fellowship?
So I would say in order for this person to have some sort of measure, some sort of shot at real success at this position, initially he needs to be focused full-time on generating revenue for the company. It's not to say down the line after a year or two, after the foundation's been established and there's revenue coming in. The goal for me is to get this person to the point where they're covering their salary from the work that they're doing, and the foundation is set very solidly. At that point, that person then becomes maybe flexible to consider working on some other things within the organization. I would say that would be okay. How do you feel about that, Annika?
Yeah, I think that's fine long term. It's, ultimately it's your hire, after they get through that initial period of making themselves self-sustaining in that role. But initially, I really do think they'll need to work on revenue full time. Okay, so we are a nonprofit. I'm the only revenue person. We need help in corporate sponsorships and affinity marketing. Would this still be major donor support? I think this is tied to the question I answered earlier. So again, it doesn't matter so much the distinction here in the application. But so just write out, what you would like to focus on if you were accepted into this program in the application, and that will be fine for us. Why use 2020 as the year to measure against, since 2020 was such a warped year between government grants and donors with stimulus funds to donate? 2019 would be much more representative. In the application, okay, I see, we ask about 2020 financials. If you'd like to include 2019 as well, that's totally fine. 2020 is the most recent calendar year, and it does reflect the reality in which we're all operating right now. Again, like we're not, personally, like when we've looked through these applications before, I'm not as interested in the number itself for revenue or expenses. I'm interested in the comparison between the two. So ultimately, that's what I'm looking at. And if you want to include your 2019 data as well, that's totally fine. What salary range are you aiming to pay for fellows? I think I'll take this one really quick, Penda, because this is a funding question. So just to be totally transparent with all of you, we have received a bucket of funding for this program. And part of our jobs is going to be looking at these applications and figuring out how to divvy up that funding. We want to remain flexible on that because, again, as I said earlier, this is the first time we're running this program. We don't have a great sense of the needs that currently exist across our membership. So we want to figure out how to help as many members as possible, but also give them quality help. We don't just want to give everybody $5,000 grants. That's not going to help anyone. So the answer to this question really is we will have a better sense once we've evaluated all the applications and really thought through how to help the greatest number of people in the most substantive way possible.
So we're just about at time. So if folks have to drop off, no worries about that. We'll have this recording, but I think we can stay a couple more minutes to answer these last questions.
No problem. What is the ratio for how much our newsroom contributes to the fellow's salary versus line and partners contribution? Is it split? I think this is the same answer that I just gave. We'll really have a better sense once we see all the applications. So again, fully acknowledge that it takes time to apply for these things. But if you meet the criteria for this program, please do apply, and we'll have a much better sense of what we're able to do once we can see all the applications. We launched in 2021. Can we use our projected budget? We started with seed money that will float the first year. Panda, what do you think?
That's an interesting one. I mean, my first thought is, yes, you can still apply. I guess if you're using seed money for operations, you could technically consider that or look at that as revenue. However, not sure you would qualify because you don't really have a revenue stream coming in from advertising. And so that would be my only question there for that one.
Yeah, if you want to follow up, whoever asked this question, if you want to follow up with us over email, maybe we can get some more details about your current situation. And again, trying to figure out that question around, have you demonstrated some revenue traction so far? Because that's really the main thing that we're going to be looking at when evaluating these applications. Okay, so another budget question. We have only 3 months of operation in 2020, which will skew the picture of our finances. Can we add info about 2021? Yes, that's totally, I think that's totally fine, right, Penda?
Yes, absolutely.
If you can give us as much information as you can for us to make an informed decision about your application, please feel free to. This is a high cost of living area. Is that factored into salaries?
Yes, it is.
Are we the employer or is Lion?
So you are the employer. This person will need to be on your payroll.
Okay, I think that's it. Cassie, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great. Well, thanks so much again for your really thoughtful questions. We really appreciate folks sending those in both ahead of time and also during this session. I dropped some links in the chat earlier, but like Annika and Penda said, if you have any kind of follow-up questions about the Revenue Fellowship or membership, if you think you're a member, but you don't see your name on the list, please email me at cassandra@linepublishers.com, and we'll double check on the back end for you to make sure that there's no issues there. So thank you again for taking the time to join us and for your interest in this fellowship. We're really looking forward to it. And we'll send out this recording too.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon. Bye, guys.
Bye, y'all.
Talk to you soon.